Hello and welcome back to another Board Crazy review. My name is D. I am joined, as ever, by...
I'm Graham.
Yep, and?
I am William.
Oh, you got
That's
it.
gotta be Quincy Adams.
Yep. Today we're doing a review of Revolution of 1828. God. So before we get started with our review, we're going to, as we always do, run my introduction to the game from our gameplay video, which you can watch if you have not yet. If you want to skip that, though, there will be a time listed that you can just skip ahead to and get right back to us. So here that goes. Revolution of 1828 is a game for 2 players designed by Stefan Feld and published by Frosted Games and Renegade Games Studios. The game is a recreation of the notorious U.S. presidential election of 1828 between Andrew Jackson and John Quincy Adams. The player who is best able to collect votes while keeping the press off their back will emerge victorious. The game is played over 4 rounds, and each round is comprised of 3 phases. To start the round, the editor and the elector figures are placed on the center of their respective areas. Then to set up the board, the first player draws election tiles from the bag and places 3 of them face up on each of the 6 areas. Then the players campaign by back and forth taking an unclaimed election tile from the middle of the board and moving it to their side. If a player takes the final election tile from an area, they collect either the editor or its elector, and then they may take an additional turn. There are 3 different types of election tiles. Most are delegates, and when one of these is taken, it is placed next to the area of its matching color. There are also smear campaigns, which have a black border. These count as wild delegates and may be placed in any of the 5 colored areas. However, they are costly if the player has drawn the attention of the editor. And then finally, there are the campaign actions, which are kept in a separate stack, and each of these comes with its own special effect. Once all tiles have been taken from the board, the round is over and players collect their votes for the round. Votes are earned based on number of delegates, electors collected, and the size of campaign piles. However, the player who has collected the editor figure must give 1 vote to their opponent for each smear campaign they've collected. Between rounds, the first player is swapped and all tiles, aside from smear campaigns, are removed from the game and replaced with new ones from the bag. Smear campaigns stay in play for the entire game. Once the 4 rounds have been finished, the player who has collected the most votes has won the election and the game. Okay, so now that everyone is an expert on the Revolution of 1828, let's give our thoughts on it, gentlemen. What do you say?
I don't know. I think the smear campaign's really...
The Schmear.
Okay, let's start this board game.
Let's talk about the Indy.
Yeah, so, Revolution of 1828, game I have some thoughts on. There's one particular game that this reminds me of. Now, I don't know if you guys have any idea what that might be.
Lost Cities.
No. What? No.
Oh, we've played it on the channel?
No.
Oh.
Lost Cities.
No. I should probably just tell you, because we could be here a while. Tic-Tac-Toe.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I kind of get it. Yeah,
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yep.
There's a sort of back and forth aspect to it.
Just placing...
But it's one of these things where the game kind of... There's a semi-solved nature to it. Like, you can play it, but it also sort of feels like it plays itself sometimes.
That's actually a really good point. And I definitely felt that way after that. The game does feel a little bit like it's just almost about timing and then a little bit of luck thrown in there based on the tiles that come out. But,
yeah.
I mean, doesn't mean there's not strategy to it.
No, obviously, it's way more involved than Tic-Tac-Toe. But it's just like how I felt. Like, it reminded me of like playing that game. It's like, okay, there are times where you get in and I can't win. Yeah. At best, I can limit the damage that I'm going to have done to me. But like even like halfway through a round, sometimes you're gonna realize like,
that's it.
It's not looking good, and there's not much you can do most of the time. Will, what do you think? You've played this game, not on the channel, but you have played it.
I agree with you guys. The word samey comes to mind. Just like how the game Tic-Tac-Toe becomes a little samey after playing it for 4 rounds.
Yeah, by the time you're like 7 years old, that game's I'm done.
Like the it is. You guys are right. I think it is solvable to an extent. Not
literally in like the traditional sense, because the game is there's variation to how the board's always going to be.
Yeah, but I mean like because there's the same amount of these election tiles that go on the board every time. When there's a definite number every round that comes out, you can definitely kind of work the board. So yes, it maybe not completely solvable, and I do think they tried to.
Once the board is set, there is no randomness from that point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they tried to account for it a little bit with some of the campaign action tiles. Like the financing one, which you can use and discard another campaign tile that you have to take an additional action. So that sort of breaks up the back and forth nature.
Yeah.
In Tic-Tac-Toe, you can't go X here too, before the other person puts a circle down.
Then you get punched.
You do this sort of freewheeling version of it. But you get what I'm saying.
But I honestly think it's pretty much just going to be, and I don't know, I'm not saying I know what it is, but it does feel like a game that once you figure out what the optimal strategy is, it's always going to be that same. However it works out, there's not going to be much to it. You're going to figure out what the best way is to time it or win it, and that's going to be that. And like you said, it kind of then becomes redundant after a few plays.
Yeah, it can be a little unsatisfying. You mentioned the campaign tokens. I think we should definitely talk about the campaign tokens because they are a surprisingly major part of the game, I feel like.
Yeah.
I was coming in, I figured, the main focus of this game would be, okay, we collect the delegates and try to collect as many votes as possible via them. It struck me as odd how prominent the campaign actions became in terms of the strategy. And also just how numerous they were on the board. I felt like there were almost too many of them in the sack. And to the point where half the time that's what you were doing and were grabbing, and then the rest, there would be, most rounds there's going to be one or two colors that just wasn't even present to get votes for, which just struck me as odd.
Yeah. I don't think, as far as the actual number, I didn't feel like there were it didn't stand out to me as there being too many, but it doesn't. It was a big part of the game, and I think it was probably designed purposefully.
No, I'm sure. Yeah,
it
felt unusual.
Because they need. I think because they needed to have almost that randomness in there to keep it from being a solvable game. Because the more colors you have out there, the more it's just going to be a back and forth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, probably.
Yeah, and I think also thematically they aided the game because in the sense that this feels like it was started off as an abstract game and then they worked back to try to incorporate more and more theme. The campaign tokens, while they add a different way to score, they also add in things that you see in campaigns. Presidential elections. You see the polling, the gerrymandering, campaign rallies. So it adds a little bit more flavor to the game while also obviously all the special abilities give you. And break up sort of the monotony of just, Graham said, just drawing colored tiles to get earned points.
Yeah, they make sense. I do have an issue with that as well, in that I don't think they're not communicated super clearly all the time.
That's a good point.
The art on the tokens does not help you at all in terms of figuring out what it is. You're constantly having to reference the back of the rulebook or even the interior of the rulebook where it actually spells out things more clearly.
Right.
And that gets a little frustrating. Or because eventually, if you play it enough, you'll start to remember. But unless both players are on that same level, it's just
you're gonna forget
constantly. What's this one do again? And if you're not constantly up on what each one is and what they can all do, and you're not you don't have the entire board understood. The video shows.
Once again,
it can.
This is where a play or help card would be nice.
It seems like such an obvious throw in. Just give a just.
I don't know why. It must be
because in a game where people are supposed to be sitting across from each other, instead of having to trade back and forth. I don't know.
I even think they could do a little bit more to help you remember. Even just putting the name of the tile on the tile would be
anything like that.
It would help for there'd be more mental association with what that tile does and its action than just the imagery. Because I feel I noticed in the video D there was a moment, especially towards the end of the game, where you outright missed one and it ended up costing you the whole. I think you still would have lost, but it made it a lot less close than it could have.
We've played this game a number of times now. The only one I still can tell you with absolute certainty how it works is Campaign Rally. Which one it is? That's the only one you know.
One to remember.
There's 6 or those it could be any one for all I know.
And it doesn't help that they're all the same color, and I get why they made it the same color because then it would clash with the actual votes, but. Still, you look at them, you're right, and there's almost not enough distinguishable
sense,
between...
what's a ballot box mean?
Yeah.
Another thing about, in terms of the balance between, how, collecting votes and campaign actions and everything, I thought it was strange. I felt like there should have been some benefit to collecting the electors in terms of your vote counts. Like obviously when you do so, you get an extra turn most of the time. But I feel like it's really strange that you would have a situation often where you would collect the elector for a region and then you would have no votes for that region, so it just gives you nothing. I thought that was really odd. I felt like maybe it should just be like a default vote by itself or something.
I think it kind of sucks if you really want one elector and the timing just doesn't work out to get it. You're almost always going to end up with a slightly balanced shift on how those the delegates happen. That making them too powerful might be
I guess, but it feels weird as like if you're trying to make it an election, having this situation where you're gonna have the entirety of New England, no delegates available right now. No one to vote for. You got an elector, whatever that means, but no votes. Sorry.
Yeah. One thing I liked that there's a slight issue I have within the game was the smear campaigns. I thought thematically that was actually my favorite part of the game.
I agree with you on that. I think thematically that's almost the only thing I would say definitely works.
Makes sense. They stay with you throughout the the election, and they can. I really like that.
The editors are aware of it. They will publicize it, and they will penalize you.
They felt a little too powerful.
Yes,
in the sense that it's. Because it's not just you're losing 3 points; it ends up being a 6 point.
Yeah, you're giving it to your opponent, which is
drastic.
Huge. It determines who wins, basically. If it's 4 rounds, if someone gets saddled with the editor 3 times, they probably are going to lose the game.
It's actually something, I did a little research online, just reading user reviews, people talking about this game. And because it was something I theorized too, what you guys were talking about, that it determines the game too often.
Yeah.
And it seems like the consensus is that because the voting system is sort of, you can almost argue like underhashed or like underdone, the game stays close. So even if the smear campaign tally is close between the 2 players, whoever gets it in that 4th round almost always loses.
That makes sense too, yeah.
So it is, I agree with you guys, it's too powerful because it almost breaks the kind of otherwise like fair and balanced scoring, especially later in a game. It's almost unfairly debilitating.
Yes. And I get that the idea of the game is, this was like the first like major smear campaign in politics, and it was an important part of it, but it's too much. Yeah. Like you can't even, like again, it almost makes the rest of the game not matter. Like all the votes, it's just like, okay. Yeah, I agree. They need some tweaking, or there needs to be an extra rule or two that can balance them a little bit, because
something that they need to
there's only 9 of them, and they feel like they dwarf the other 70 or however many tokens in the bag. It's crazy.
There is one thing, and I think we kind of hinted at it or briefly mentioned it, but I felt like the game goes on too long for what it is. It's the 4 rounds feels like a lot. It almost works better if it were like 2 rounds, or maybe just a longer 1 round. I don't know. Maybe if it was just a really short game.
Yeah. Or even 3 rounds.
3 rounds would be weird because it go back and forth.
I guess that's true.
Yeah. I just 4 rounds just felt like a lot for this game.
Or like 2 longer rounds or something.
Yeah, something.
Yeah, anyway. So, let's talk, I guess we can talk about like the components, the package itself.
Yeah.
And if you want, Will?
So I think...
show the...
There's a ton of components. Alexander Young's artwork is really good.
Pogs.
And I also like the colorfulness of like the vote tiles here, and these are all very colorful. I think that was nice. But then they made this weird color decision with the campaign tiles and the smear campaign tiles. They went with a dark brown background or ring, and then
brown. It's like it's brown, but it's similar enough to black that when you compare it to like the colored ones, that you really have to like double check it each time. Like, no, that's a smear campaign.
I don't know. I just don't know why the smear campaigns are so close in color.
They could have been.
It almost looked like you just grabbed 2 smear campaigns to try to find a smear campaign.
And not only that, like even the artwork is like it's gonna look similar, but it's so similar. Like even the newspaper and they just are super similar. It seems it is a weird design choice for that.
Yeah,
but there's lots of colors out there.
There's
others they could use. I don't know. Like, I wish they would have just given you a little plastic bag for the vote tokens. I don't know why they didn't.
Yeah.
It seems like that would have been such a minor concession.
Everyone loves the
chaos. It just makes a mess in the. I don't get that.
D?
Yeah.
Why don't we wrap up?
Wrap it up? Okay. Let's give it. Well, we should give this game our scores. I, of course, do a 5-star system.
Yeah, these scores are completely. We all have our own scales and rubrics, so they're not arbitrary at all.
I've crunched the numbers. Yeah. This game just has a lot of issues that that prevent it for me embracing it. Like I kind of want to like it more than I do, but I just really I don't like. It never feels like you're in control enough to really justify it as like a strategy game. And you know, I think thematically it's interesting. I do like all like the history and stuff they provide, but yeah, I don't love it. I'm gonna give it 2 stars.
2 stars out of 5.
Yeah.
I agree. There's just, you don't have enough control. It feels like there's way more luck involved than I really enjoy in a game. And then it just needs a little bit of tweaking. I'm gonna give it 1 thumb down.
Wilhelm.
While I agree with you guys, I didn't always enjoy it. It is a singularly unique experience for me in that when I played it, I always think I'm kicking butt. And then at the end of the game, I'm like, oh no, I got my butt kicked.
Yeah.
And that's a strange experience. I think you're doing so well. I remember even one time I was playing Graham, you were like, oh, I'm getting my butt. You're like, I'm losing bad. And then we counted the score, and it's like after round 2, it was like, oh, it's like 20 to like 13.
Yeah.
You're like killing me. So
I don't know. Every time I played this game, I feel like I've won quite a bit, and every time I'm like, man, I don't know how to play this. I don't know what to figure out
this game goes. Like
Yeah.
like you might feel like you're doing well, but really that editor and the smear campaigns really determine everything.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So all that being said, though, I still, I think I'm going to give this a C.
Okay.
Yeah.
Didn't see that coming.
Yeah, it's, well, I mean, we all had sort of the same opinion. But, you know, I don't want people thinking that this isn't at all, like, not fun or anything. We kind of pointed that
No,
out.
yeah, no.
It's
It's like Tic-Tac-Toe. It can be fun,
Yeah.
but at the end of the day, you're probably not going to be super satisfied.
And what's interesting is actually the first time we played this game, I really liked it. I was like, oh man, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I thought it was kind of clever, and then after you play it, you're right.
Keep playing it real, okay.
Yeah, like I said, on the surface, it's nice, but it's just
shallow.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please like, comment, subscribe, share. You know, all the usual stuff. We'd like to hear from you. If you have any thoughts on the game or our review, if you think we're too cruel to the revolution of 1828, let us know.
Well, tough.
Yeah.
See, I wanted to smack the table here or flip it over.
If only there was something you could flip.
If
I know.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's going to wrap it up. Until next time, everybody, thanks for watching. Toodaloo.
Bah. Oh, damn.